This is Find Your Daily Calm. I'm Sel Gaston. Hello and welcome. Today's episode is a gentle invitation to come back. Back to your body, back to this moment, and back to yourself. Our guest for this episode is Donovan Guido, a certified teacher of presence life coach and the creator of the Power of Presence program. Joey's work is centered on a simple but often forgotten truth. Real healing doesn't happen in our heads alone. It happens when we learn how to be here. Joey helps people step out of chronic overthinking and into lived experience, supporting mental, physical, and emotional well-being through presence, mindfulness, and practical self-care. But this path wasn't something he chose casually. It was forged through necessity. After nearly losing his life to Crohn's disease in the late 90s, and later facing burnout while caring for a seriously ill partner, Joey came to a life-changing realization. Self-care is not selfish. It's essential. That insight became the foundation of his work, and eventually, the heart of the programs he now shares with others. In this episode, you'll hear a reflection from Joey that brings together mindfulness, compassion, and lived wisdom, something you don't need to believe in, just something you can feel. So wherever you are right now, I invite you to soften a little and listen.
Today, I'd like to talk with you about living your life on autopilot and what that means to me. So, autopilot is essentially unconsciousness, living your life going through the motions. Okay, and I've got a couple of stories to share with you that highlights this from my own life. Many years ago, back in the 90s, I suffered from a condition called Crohn's disease. And this is a condition that can manifest because of trauma, because of emotional circumstances, as well as other things like stress. So, previous to Crohn's disease, I was living a life on autopilot. I was working in a business with my dad, and everything was fine, making enough money to pay the bills, but it wasn't what I wanted to do. At the time, I wanted to be an actor and a writer, and I wasn't doing anything about that. I was living in unconsciousness, day to day, going to work, coming home, and not living my true life or being true to who I was. And so eventually, because of high volumes of stress and anxiety, the Crohn's disease manifested and I nearly died. And during that time is when I first discovered what it meant to live in a mindful way, or what I call consciousness. And what I did was I wound up switching up everything. I started meditating, taking care of myself, really, really starting to assess my life and what I wanted it to look like in a very intentional way. So fast forward a few months, and this is all going well, and I'm starting to feel better. And I am presented with another opportunity to either be on autopilot or to be in consciousness. And what happened in this moment was I was on about 16 pills a day to manage the Crohn's disease. And my doctor told me, you're going to be on this medication for the rest of your life. You can't run anymore. I was an avid runner, did marathons, half marathons. And for a while, I was living on autopilot with what the doctor told me my life was going to be. Until one day I realized that the medication I was on actually caused the same symptoms as Crohn's disease. And I remember being in the kitchen with my wife, leaning on the kitchen counter and saying, I am getting off this medication. And it was a very, very conscious moment for me, where I realized that I didn't have to listen to the doctor if it wasn't what I felt was best for my health and my life. And within a few weeks, I was completely off the medication and managing my illness with herbs, daily meditation, and also acupuncture. So this is one example of where I made a shift from autopilot to consciousness. And what happens is people can easily slip into autopilot really at any time. And one of the things I find that is one of the greatest catalysts to autopilot is our phones. And you've probably heard this before, but it is something that I have noticed within my own home, within myself, and also out in the community where I might be out for a run and I see somebody walking their dog. Well, they're walking their dog, but they're really immersed in their phone. They're not even watching where they're going. And they're not enjoying the weather, if it's a nice day, or the sunshine, or maybe the changing of the leaves, if it's autumn. I notice this when people are out for a walk with their children, pushing them in the stroller. And again, they're not there. They're immersed in their phone. And this happens to all of us sometimes while we're eating, sometimes when we're going to the bathroom, if we're going to be completely honest here. And we can easily get sucked into the phone. And what I have found is that the phone is a portal, quite often, to unconsciousness. So, what do we do if we don't want to live on autopilot? When there are all these distractions like our phones and television, our computers, social media. One of the easy ways to do this, no matter where you are, no matter what you're doing, is to be aware of your breath. And something I learned from Eckhart Tolle is that the breath is the portal to consciousness. And the great news is that you've got it with you no matter where you are. So what I'm talking about here is essentially taking a moment to take some slow, deep, intentional breaths. Breathe into your body. And one thing I like to do is actually try and identify if I'm feeling tension or anxiety. Where is that manifesting physically in my body? And if you're comfortable trying this, I highly suggest it. It can be super helpful. And what I'll do is I'll actually breathe into that area of my body. And for me, it's typically my arms, for whatever reason. And when I do this, I can actually start to feel that anxiety or that stress or tension start to dissipate, start to leave my body. And another thing you can do, and this is associated with breath work, is to pause. So if you're in the middle of working on your computer or scrolling on Facebook or Instagram, if you're in a place mindful enough to realize what's happening, just take a pause. And what I've learned is that the presence is in the pause. And if you can couple this pause with a nice, slow, deep breath, what you're actually doing is changing the composition of your blood. Different chemicals are releasing into your bloodstream because of this slowdown. Your heart rate will start to slow down, And what's also happening is that your vagus nerve, the communication between your body and your body through that breath is starting to speak to your mind and let it know, hey, you're okay. And what you might start to notice as you take that pause, as you take that breath, is that your mind starts to quiet. Another example I'd like to share with you is what I call the river analogy. And a few years ago, before I was on my path to consciousness, to mindfulness, when I was feeling a strong thought or emotion, I felt like I was up to my eyeballs in it, drowning in it. That's all there was, that thought or emotion. And then one day, I realized that, yes, these thoughts or emotions are occurring, and I'm experiencing them. I am not my thoughts or emotions. I am experiencing them, and sometimes that experience may be very overwhelming. But here's the thing. Previously, I was drowning in these thoughts and emotions, drowning as if I was in a raging river. And then there was a moment where I thought to myself, why don't I just get out of this river? And in that moment, I became an observer of those thoughts and emotions. Metaphorically, stepping out of the river and starting to towel off, so to speak, and stand at a safe distance from that raging river so I could observe what I was experiencing. This was a game changer. It didn't mean I didn't feel those intense emotions anymore or that I wasn't thinking those intense thoughts anymore. What it meant was now I was observing myself having this experience, almost like when we watch a film. And this was kind of mind-blowing for me because I started to realize that I could be existing on multiple planes at the same time. An emotional or cognitive plane where I was feeling upset, and also on the plane of consciousness or mindfulness, and know that I was completely okay. And the thing is, I still catch myself. I still catch myself in conditioned mind. And I think we all do. And when that happens, really what I try to do is be kind to myself. And when I'm realizing that's a good thing, because then that means I am in consciousness again, because I'm observing that I am on autopilot. So I'll pause, take a breath, and reset and move back into consciousness. One last thing I'd like to share with you before we wrap up is that when I catch myself, what that looks like. Because sometimes I'm quite surprised at what's happening when I'm on autopilot or in conditioned mind. And I see this happen all the time where I'm a caregiver. I take care of my wife who has many health issues. And what I'll find is that sometimes I have a very rigid or what's called a fixed mindset. Let's say it's 4:00 in the afternoon and I'm like, okay, I need to wrap up work. I need to start to prepare for cleaning up the kitchen so I can cook dinner, so we can get to bed at a certain time, yada, 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 right? We all have our list of to-dos. And sometimes I get so in a fixed mindset, so on autopilot, that I'm not thinking about what do I need in that moment or during that time period. And when I catch myself and I take a step back and I observe, I typically realize, hey, I need self-care. And it's usually me going outside, even in the dead of winter here in Wisconsin, and taking a walk or going for a run. And in a fixed mindset, there's no room for that. The list is made, I've got to adhere to it. And you know what? That's not true. That's not the case. That's just autopilot. When I'm aware of it, when I'm observing it, then I can make a mindful decision and realize, you know what? Everything's okay. It's okay if I go out and take care of myself now, and we eat a little bit later, and we get to bed a little bit later. Once I let go of resisting and I start accepting that, hey, it's okay to go to bed later, then everything starts to flow. Everything starts to feel less stressful. And autopilot starts to diminish. And I'll leave you with one final comment. It's not what you're doing. It's how you're doing it. Are you doing it mindlessly? Or are you doing it consciously? And with that, I'd like to thank you for listening today. Many blessings to you.
If something in Joey's message resonated with you, if you felt seen, steadied, or gently reminded of what matters, you may want to explore his work further. You can visit joeydonovanguido.com, where you will find thoughtful articles, videos, and resources on improving your mental, physical, and emotional health. If it feels aligned, Joey also offers a complimentary discovery call, a quiet space to see whether working together might support where you are right now. Joey's work is deeply informed by lived experience, years of mindfulness and meditation practice, studies in neuroplasticity, trauma, psychology, spirituality, and presence-based teachings from sources like Eckhart Tolle, Buddhism, Native American spirituality, and Ram Dass. But beyond the credentials, he's also a husband, a father of two, a lover of simplicity, notebooks, vinyl records, good design, good coffee, and the everyday moments that make life real. As always, you don't need to rush to do anything with what you heard today. Sometimes, presence simply asks us to notice. And let that be enough. Thank you for listening. And until next time, be gentle with yourself.